Hello, I'm back from Japan. It's been pretty busy since I got back, but I do really want to get those vlogs out there. Like, I'm super excited to begin editing them and sharing them. Before that, however, I feel like I have a certain obligation to complete both this Japanese by example series and the chess recaps before, I forget about them completely and have them be another dead-ended project. So you'll have to wait quite a bit for the Japan vlogs, as disappointing as that may seem. For now, however, you can satisfy yourselves with my YouTube community page, where I have been uploading pictures and stuff from my recent trip. You'll also notice that I have this much cruder setup. I have a voice activated avatar so that I don't have to waste time animating, and everything else you see here is just a PowerPoint slideshow. If I want to release these videos quickly, I basically have no other choice, so apologies for the drop in production quality. Without further ado, let's do a quick recap of the video.
おい、二人乗りやめなさい。
はい。
おい、縦に二人乗りやめなさい。
はい。
Right, so again, a reminder of what this video is about. This police officer is telling people to stop doing this futarinori thing, which means double riding, and the scenarios get increasingly ridiculous each time. So for the second set of riders, they're stacked one on top of the other, and the officer describes this as tate ni futarinori. So the entire sentence boils down to Oi, tate ni futarinori yamenasai. So, new piece of vocab. Tate. What does this mean? It is a noun that specifies either a vertical, top to bottom orientation, or a front to back orientation, depending on the context. So, how do we use tate and, in general, other nouns which involve orientation? One very common way these nouns are used is to add an element of orientation to a particular verb, and they can accomplish this with the following construction. You have the orientation plus ni plus the verb. So, for example, furu on its own means to swing, while tate ni furu means to swing vertically or in an up to down manner. You can specify a direct object, say kubi, which means head, and all in all you get kubi o tate ni furu, which basically means to nod. Next example, tate ni narabu, to line up front to back. Obviously this can also be interpreted as to line up vertically, but if I say tate ni narande kudasai, people are not going to just start standing on top of each other. Alternatively, if I want to describe this scene, I can say botan ga tate ni narandeiru. The buttons are lined up vertically. Again, the intended orientation, whether vertical or front to back, is dependent on context, or rather just what makes the most sense. Third example, tate ni totta shashin, a photograph that was taken vertically, as opposed to, horizontally. In which case you would say yoko ni totta shashin, a horizontally taken photograph. A more complex example arises when we use a verb like muku, which means to face or to look towards. That is because muku can accept nouns via either o or ni, so that both nani nani wo muku and nani nani ni muku are accepted use patterns. Now I found quite a good Japanese article which attempts to explain the differences between these two use patterns, and I'll try to summarize the most important points. But for a more in-depth view, you can check the article out yourself. Link will be in the description. Basically, o has a more action or direction-oriented connotation, whereas ni puts more emphasis on the state, or in this specific case, the orientation of the object. Let's demonstrate this with the following set of examples. こっちを向いて which means look over here or look in my direction. Number 2, we have 窓が南に向いている, which means the window is facing south. We know to use を in the first sentence because we are expressing something that is more action-oriented, while we know to use に in the second sentence because it is more status-oriented. This behavior also has somewhat to do with 向く being used transitively in the first example and intransitively in the second example. Although, practically speaking, you can probably get away with mixing these two up. For example, こっちに向いて is sometimes said in place of こっちを向いて. Anyways, let's get back on track. Obviously, 縦に二人乗り does not follow the orientation plus に plus verb construction, since, as I mentioned before, 二人乗り is a noun. So what we have instead is something like orientation plus に plus noun, which I believe is an unestablished pattern since 縦に二人乗り is the only instance of this pattern which I can find. For example, I found 縦に二人乗り being used to describe those two-seater cars which are so thin that one person has to sit in front and the other at the back. There's also examples of people using 縦の二人乗り instead of 縦に二人乗り. As for what is right and what is wrong, that is well beyond my capabilities, so move on we shall. This is just a quick side note that we can use で in place of に in some instances. Emphasis on some. For example, 首を立てで振る could maybe work, but it does sound quite a bit unnatural. 立てで並ぶ and 立てで取る are both natural, and I found plenty of examples online. And finally, 南で向く is, I think, just plain wrong. So, quick excursion on the particle で. The reason why で can be used here is that one of its functions is to mark the method or way in which an action or verb is conducted. For example, if you buy something at a コンビニ, you might get asked, お支払い方法はどうしますか? And you might reply with 現金で払う or simply 現金で. And by doing so, you're specifying that cash is the method in which you would like to pay. So basically, comparing 縦に写真を撮る and 縦で写真を撮る is basically the same thing as comparing something like to take a photo vertically and to take a photo in a vertical manner. Basically makes no difference. And apparently that's the end of the slides. So, with that said, I guess class dismissed. Goodbye. I'll see you later.